I'm Leon Tarter. I was born in Edmonson County, Kentucky. It was a pauper county, and we were farmers, and we owed on the farm, and then we went through the Great Depression, and there was 5 kids of us, and we had a hard time making a living, and the bank threatened to take the farm, and it was worth less than what we owed on it, so they let us keep the farm, and we stayed there and grew up, and it wasn't a good farm, but we did make a living on it, and we worked and raised everything we eat. We had our cows, so we had our milk and butter, and we had our chickens, and we had our eggs, and we had some hogs, so we had our meat, and we raised everything we eat. We didn't buy nothing at the store. My parents didn't drink coffee because they didn't think they could afford it. And we even had our own sugar. We had molasses, and we had maple trees, and we put both of those holes in them. We got maple syrup, and my mother would cook it down, and we had our own sweetening. We had coal oil lamps for a light, and we'd buy a little coal oil at the store, and that's about the only thing we ever bought at the store. Now, it wasn't very high, but of course we didn't have much money, so anyhow, it was a hard time, but everybody else was poor too, so we didn't pay no attention to it. So if you wanted to find out anything that's going on in the neighborhood, you went to church. Everybody went to church on Sunday, and they talked to their friends and found out what was going on. Otherwise, you didn't know. No telephone, no lights, no nothing. I was taught about Jesus at home, and my mother was very, very religious, and my mother prayed every night at 9 o'clock for me. She got out on her knees to pray, and I knew that, and when I was in combat, I knew that, and I knew every night, I knew that she was thinking about me, and it helped me in a lot of ways, and it helped me to help other boys that didn't know those things a lot of times. And it took everything, looked like. And I was the luckiest man in living to go through all of it and not be killed like a lot of boys was. And it's so many different ways to get hurt. And there's so many different ways to not get hurt. Like in Normandy, Jesus must have been there because they called his name a lot. When it really got bad, they called his name a lot. So he must have been there. And there's a whole lot of boys that didn't take it serious till right up to the last, when it was too late almost. But that's what I feel like that's what our country is based on. And if we lose that, we're going to lose our country. It was 1941, so I was about 15, 16, Pearl Harbor. And my dad always said, well, it'll all be over before you ever get old enough to go. But it didn't happen that way. And Hitler started taking those little countries in 1939 and 40 and 41 in there, and taking all that slave labor into Germany and putting them in the factories and working them, and it was amazing how much equipment and machinery and all the equipment they made, the slave labor made. There was a lot of Russians there, a lot of Russian women was there. And then they worked hard. They worked on the farms and in factories and everywhere else. I was 18. I'd been 18. I was 18 to 3 or 4 months when I went in the Army. And then I was 18 when my division landed at Utah Beach. I was 18. 79th Infantry Division, and I was in the recon. And that was a cavalry scout for the infantry. That's We acted just like a scout back in the days of the cowboys, and we was behind enemy lines quite a bit, more than we wanted to be. And several different times we was behind enemy lines. We went out and tried to find out what was out there and come back and report it to the headquarters. And if we found there was tanks, then they sent tanks or planes, and if it was just men, they just sent men. So they didn't want to lose tanks and stuff because it's hard to get over there. We made a Rhine crossing up in Holland. We painted every number on the vehicles. There wasn't a number nowhere, anything to recognize us. We moved. It took us 2 days and nights to move up into Holland. And when we got up there, we didn't know what we was going to do. We got up there, and when it got daylight the next morning, there was pamphlets all over the roads and everything. It said, "Welcome 79th Division to Holland for the Rhine crossing." So the Germans and the civilians knew it, but we didn't know it. So they was up on everything, believe me. Yeah, they didn't. They had phones and they had equipment and radios and stuff, and they knew where we were all the time. They knew more about where we were than we did. We took a town that had a concentration camp in it, had American soldiers in it. They was prisoner of war. They was in German territory, and they'd been there, I don't know how long, but they'd been there most of the war. And because a lot of those boys got captured in Normandy, and a lot of boys got captured in Normandy that the public never did hear about. Thousands and thousands of American boys, and they were in Germany, and they dug trenches for the soldiers, and they done things like that. And there's one American boy, he was a little bitty skinny fellow. They had very little to eat. They'd eat a little cup of pea soup and one slice of bread a day. They was awful weak and awful skinny. When of course they relieved all the boys, there must have been, I don't know, 200 or 300 in there. And then we put German prisoners in there after we relieved them. And we stayed there 4 or 5 days until the rear got up to us where they could take it over. But they had some good equipment. They also had a lot of equipment that wasn't good. They had horse-drawn artillery and things like that wasn't modern at all. And we'd have a roadblock, and they'd be blocked, and horses be dead in the road, and our tanks would come up the road and running over them, and it would be one dog mess, you can't imagine. But they had a lot of equipment that was not good like ours, and then they had some better. We were just kind of loafing at this particular time. We was behind a house. I really don't know what we were doing, but we was behind the house. And it was a rick of wood, a long rick of wood, maybe 10, 12 feet long. That means it was stacked up, so this high. And this, we didn't know what it was. This jet came over, and it was so fast we didn't see it. It was done past before we could see it. But it was the awfulest racket you ever heard. And it was so loud and so low that this rick of wood, it shook it, so this rick of wood just fell over. And we thought, what in the world could that be? And come to find out it was a jet airplane, and he was breaking the sound barrier. So he was gone before we seen him, but it sure was making a racket. So we found out that was a jet plane, which is something new that we'd never seen before. We had P-38s and 47s and all like that. Now, back in Normandy, we had, after a few days, several days, Romney got there with a lot of tanks. I'm talking about maybe 4,000 or 5,000. And we couldn't handle them. And those little P-47 planes, would come in there early of a morning, they'd dive straight down. They couldn't shoot up. Their guns wouldn't shoot straight up. Those little P-47 would drive straight down those plants, and they'd drop a jelly bomb, which would get very hot. And when some of that jelly hit that tank, it'd get hot and they'd have to come out. And then the boys that was dug in, they'd get them. So they had a lot of tanks that was still good tanks, but there's nobody in them. And those little P-47s did one heck of a job. That's the only way you could stop them. Our tanks couldn't stop them. We had 88s, and they had 88s, and we had 76s. And their tanks was much stronger than ours. Yeah, these German tanks had to have an 88 on them, and they would shoot all the way through one of our tanks. Now that's a knocked out tank, and these boys are just kind of inspecting it. What's happening there? They are seeing if there's anybody still in it, and there's not evidently. And we've seen a lot of those tanks that had been knocked out. They was everywhere. I really didn't know, I didn't think that we had a gun that would penetrate their tanks. If that's a bullet hole, that's, I guess it is. Now we had artillery that would, but we had a 76 on our tanks that wouldn't penetrate the German tanks. But their guns would penetrate our tanks. And you can't fight a war without tanks. So you couldn't have a tank fight with them. They had, so the only thing we had to fight their tanks with was those P-47 planes. And they'd drop a bomb on them. We had a liaison plane always about just right along the front line. They was there night and day. Anytime at night, you could always hear a little liaison plane buzzing in the background. They followed that front line night and day to see what they could see, and they saw them with these 44 boys, and that's how we knew where they were. I understand they was in the 42nd Division. I don't know why we were trying to get them out, but because we was the 79th, but we got them out. Then they were scared, and they run, and they run, and they run, and they just kept going out the back. But when they 68 give up's when they broke loose, and they saw what's going on. I guess they was looking out the windows or something, I don't know. But we never did see them. We never did get to them. And I don't think we would have got to them. I think it was too much resistance, so we never got to them. Stattmatten, the best I remember, was somewhere 3 to 5 miles behind enemy lines. And we rushed to Stattmatten. I mean, we drove fast, and the tank drove and met us there, and we drove fast, and we didn't lose no time rushing in the town and setting the houses afire, and we was going to rush to town and before anybody knew we was there and get those boys out, and evidently they knew we was coming, and they prepared for us. So it wasn't as easy as we thought it was going to be. It didn't work that way. So they had a lot of resistance, and we didn't think they did. And so they stopped us, and we stayed there from about 9 o'clock till around 3 in the afternoon. And if it had been anybody besides Lockhart, we'd probably done pulled out. The idea that when they called from headquarters to our lieutenant, and he was a good lieutenant, he was good to us. He was a tall fella, wore pigeon-toed. Me and him stood guard together a lot, and we talked about our families and got real close. But he did do things that I really didn't think was right. course, Lockhart was only interested in getting his bars back, and I'm not sure that he wanted this story told too much. He before he come to us, he stole I guess got too much to drink, and he stole the captain's Jeep and went into town and got drunk with some ladies and wrecked the Jeep and really did mess up, and they busted him. So when we got him, he was a buck private, but he was smart. So he was wanting, and he told me several times when we'd stand guard, private, just us two, that he said, if I don't get my bars back, said, my family will disown me. He said, they sent me to all kinds of school to get to be an officer and so on, and says, it was important, real important to my family to me to do what I did. And then I messed up and said, some way or another, I got to get them back. And so when they called, of course, headquarters knew all that, more about him than we did. And when they called that morning of Stattmatten, he said, yeah, I'll get them out if you'll give me my bars back. Well, we as individuals didn't know that. And that's good. It's probably good we didn't, because another time or two, if we were supposed to go a certain place, he'd always go extra mile and a lot of times got people hurt when it wasn't necessary. And so anyhow, but the idea that morning we went in, we was to rush the town, and we was to get them boys out and rush out. That was the idea. Hit them hard, and they didn't know it was coming. So he drawed a little picture, and we was going to meet at the edge of town, which we did. We borrowed a light tank from the tank division there. They sent us a light tank with full boys. So we had a light tank, could move fast. We had an armored car, and we had a machine gun Jeep, which didn't do us any good. When we got in town, the machine gun Jeep, shut the door off it, and there it sat out there in the street. You couldn't get to it, you know. So anyhow, so we had an armored car, and we had a tank, and we had 12 men on foot. And that was part of the 3rd Platoon. Didn't take them all, because he didn't want to get them all killed at one time, and that would have been bad on him. So we met at the edge of town, and they issued us bullets that would set whatever we shoot, set it fire. So, and the Lieutenant Lockhart, he told us what to do, what he expected. He expected if a curtain moved, shoot it. He expected us to burn the houses as we go down, having lots of going on that they didn't know what was happening, and get them boys out and leave. That was the idea. We were supposed to hit hard, quick, and leave, because that's why we had the light tank. It could move fast and so on. So Lockhart gave us the order to shoot everything that moved. And one of the boys says, you don't mean women and children, do you, Lockhart? He said, I mean that we come over here to kill these son of a bitches. That's what they sent us for. He said, I want everything that moves shot. Well, we'd never had nothing like that before. This was different to anything that we'd really been in. So when we stopped here at the edge of town and got all together, and everybody found out what this going to do and not going to do, then we rushed to town. Another rest of our platoon every show, they didn't even come up there, because we went 4 or 5 miles before we ever got to Stattmatten, and we would fast. And here come the tank. It was fast as it'd run, I guess. So we was to go in quick and rush the town and cause all the commotion, get the boys out and leave. Well, it didn't work that way. They had too much resistance. So then we was moving fast up the streets, had everything burning, everything was moving pretty good. And then the time we got up the street, one straight street like that, small town, made a curve right down that was the main street down through here. There was a 3-story building right on this corner here. So we was going up through here and having them houses burned and all the cattle running out of the houses, burning, and women are screaming, and everything happening bad, of course, getting to these boys right in here. So we got up here, the tank come on, well, he was in front, and when he got up to here, I'd say 30 minutes or an hour later, when he got to this curve, they knocked him out. So now all the rest of us was down through here, and he was in front. That third story, I don't know how they did it. I didn't see it because I was trying to watch my own butt. They shot something out of the third story window down in the turret of that tank. And when they did, of course, it killed them all. And part of the man that was head of the tank was hanging out, and the rest of it is in the tank. So it was a bad. It was a pretty big. It was bigger than a hand grenade. Let's put it that way. So anyhow, some of the ammunition I would think went off in the tank, but anyhow. So there sat the tank. That kind of shot us in the foot. We was kind of tired and didn't know hardly what to do, and so the enemy was way greater than we thought. And but the tank was knocked out, and one boy crawled out of the tank, and he was hurt bad, and he just kind of fell out, and he just crawled around the side of the tank for protection, and he never did move much. Instead of being a half a dozen soldiers in the town, there was probably 100, 150. So that really slowed us down, and we were trying to get here to these boys. So now it slowed us down, in fact, to a stop. Then they began to counterattack after this tank. We thought we had them on the run, and they said, well, we'll just run them out of town. So they counterattacked for a little while, 30 minutes, hour maybe. And so they lost several men when they counterattacked. And because we still have an armored car and with 2 or 3 machine guns, and of course all of us with M1s and so on. So anyhow, so they stopped, and it looked like, I know like for instance, your dad was up here watching what was going on. Really wasn't taking any part, it was just kind of seeing maybe behind the house and seeing what's going on, what's happening. So about 3 o'clock that afternoon, we was getting down so low with men and everything and ammunition and everything else, it looked like we had a problem. We was down to 7. We had lost 5 of our men, plus the 4 in the tank, plus 1 on the machine gun. And there sat a machine gun Jeep out there in the street and couldn't nobody get to it, so it just sat there with a man dead in it. So we had so much resistance we couldn't move, so me and a boy named Kostreva, a real nice boy, ran in this barn for protection. And the barn had a little ladder going up to a hay mound where there was hay in the barn. And Kostreva says, I'm going up here in this hay mound and see if I can see where all the shootings come from, that we can get it stopped. So when he was going up the ladder, I said, well, I'm going up there too. And I put my rifle over my shoulder, and I started up the ladder behind him. About the time he got up close to the top, I didn't see nobody. I didn't see nobody till I fell. When they shot him, of course I heard that. And he fell right back down on me. He never made a move. He shot him right down that spine. And so he fell down on me, and of course I fell down, hit the ground on my back, my gun over there 4, 5, 6 feet from me. Well, when I kind of got my senses, I looked up, and there the 2 soldiers were that shot him, standing up there with their guns on me. Well, it was a pretty good sign to me that they was going to kill me too, and I began to beg. I put my hands together and I began to beg for my life, please, and I was crying. Now, you think you see these big tough guys in a war, but when the right time come, I've seen a lot of them cry. I was crying for my life. I was begging, and I was screaming for my life. And they stood there for half a minute or more with their guns pointed at me, and they began to talk to each other. I'm laying there on my back looking straight up at them. They began to talk to each other. Directly, they just laid their guns down and put their hands up like that and then come down the ladder. Left their guns up there. When they got down on the ground, they gave up. And I was, of course, looking down at Kostreva and crying, and they was standing there, and they was very excited and scared. And they just looked down at him, they just killed him, and one of them cried. Now that's hard to believe, but it's true. And they wasn't old battle-hardened soldiers. They looked like they was well-dressed and neat, and they looked more like office workers or something. And they was down there by themselves, which was unusual. Well, of course, they just stayed in the barn, and I did too, and I couldn't get nobody there for a while, and finally I got somebody to come get them. And I told them that I sure didn't want to be bothered in no way, that they could have killed me, and they didn't. And so then, of course, Kostreva was already dead, wasn't nothing to do for him, so I santered out and went down the street and got with some of the other guys, and we just moved on. Then, I'd say at 3 o'clock that afternoon, which is from 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, there's 5, 6 hours we'd been in there and we still hadn't got to them. So they was building up from behind, and we wasn't, because our troops was 5 miles back. So they was building up against us fast. So I feel sure that we was either fixing to be killed or captured, one of the two. And I think your dad, 36-year-old, saw what was happening. And he thought this is the end of it. So he took a chance and come down there and he wasn't standing up walking now. He was down on his hunkers and kind of running kind of like I was, kind of like a chicken. But he was moving along pretty good right down, and somebody said, "What in the hell is that medic doing? Where is he going with a white flag? Is he giving us up, or are we surrendering?" Well, he went right on down, right past that tank, and then disappeared. And then 10 minutes later, he and 2 more officers showed up kind of the left of the tank. And that's when, of course, nobody was, when the fight flag's up, nobody fired a shot. There went 10, 15 minutes, there wasn't a shot fired on either side. The German officers had flags, and your daddy had a flag, white flag. So there was all 3 in the street with their flags. And they were hollering something to their men, I don't know what, but anyhow, then they begin to come out, they begin to come out behind the buildings and so on. Now we couldn't see them all, because we couldn't see around the corner. But they begin to show up in front of your dad and the other officers with no guns, and the hands up and so on. Some of them hands up and some wasn't. So we said, hell, they're all giving up to us. And that's what they're doing. Well, we just kind of flabbergasted, didn't know what to say. We just been like a bunch of idiots, you know. It was much been happening. We was all scared to death. When your daddy came down through her there with a white flag, some of us was pretty upset. I'm really surprised that somebody didn't take a shot at him. You know what we really thought? We thought he was surrendering us. And if that had been an officer instead of him, our officer, that's what it would have been. But he didn't say anything to Lieutenant, nobody, as far as I know. He thought we was the end of the road. And that would probably been the best thing, but at that particular time. But we really thought, and it looked like it, you know. He never said nothing to nobody. He never told nobody. In fact, he didn't talk to nobody that I ever knew of, like any of us. And here he comes down through here with a white flag. He was hollering loud, some kind of, but what he was hollering, I didn't know what he was hollering, but he was hollering something in German, and he was hollering loud. And he went on down the street hollering loud, and went out of sight hollering loud. And then the next thing we knew, 68 soldiers, including the 2 officers, gave up to us. About 3 o'clock the afternoon. We came out, looked down the street. There was several German soldiers was dead in the streets and so on. He was the only one there capable of doing what he done. And if you was having a problem and some Americans talked to you, you would sure listen a whole lot more than you would if some foreigner talked to you. So we couldn't talk to him. But evidently he could talk pretty good German, because he was hollering whatever he wanted to holler, and they listened to him. And I know by him being able to speak German, the officers listened to him what they wouldn't otherwise. And he promised them his word that they wouldn't be harmed, and like I said, it was up in their in their country at that time, and they had begun to soften up. They saw that they wasn't going to win the war. What was one thing that worried me about it was, you know, these houses that we set afire, which is all of them that we got to, and those women and kids in those houses, they was afraid to come out, so they just burn up in the house. And we lost a lot of civilians, which is not good. But the goal is to get in there and get them boys out to hell with everybody else. There was so much going on and so much bad stuff, so many people screaming, and the women, you know, that's hard on a boy, 18-year-old, and these women screaming and their houses burning, and they'd maybe come out with a baby in the arm and turn back and go in the house and die right in the fire, you know. And for a kid, 18-year-old, had been raised right, raised that there was a good Lord above, it's kind of hard to take. And I was upset and scared, and I guess there's a lot of things happened that I didn't know about. There was all that tragedy going on. Of course, now, I've thought a million times, those 44 boys was already, they was done captured. They would have carried them back in a concentration camp. It wasn't over 6, 8 months or 7 months before the war was over. They might have they would have got hungry and stuff like that, but they might have all lived. And then this 18 German soldiers would have lived. Our 9 or 10 boys would have lived, besides all the civilians that got killed. Was it worth? Was that a greedy act? All these people get killed for greed. So anyhow, some of our boys thought it was, and they threatened Lockhart to his face. And they told him, if we ever get you in the right spot, you better watch out. We're gonna kill you. And they told him to his face, and that's pretty big words. And he got his bars back, but he didn't stay with us. I don't know where he went. I understand he did come home, but I don't know. Of course, now this war was, he might have stayed with us a while longer. I don't know. I just don't remember all that. But I do remember your daddy. They didn't talk like it's a big deal at the time, but it was a big deal. It was a big deal if you were standing there with an M1 and faced it about 80, 60, 70 German soldiers, and there's no telling how many was behind them. And okay, we're there about 5 or 6 hours. They had time to several come in behind it. We had nobody coming in behind us for help. Now, your daddy told him there was we had a lot of them behind us. But he didn't say there's 10 miles back, or 5 miles back. But it was a wonderful thing the way it turned out. He said, look at there. He said, that damn medic is surrendering to us. and that's what it looked like, Eric. As far as I'm concerned, he saved the whole bunch. I'm not sure he knew he was. There's one thing I always thought that really didn't give our country the praise that they should. The women in our country put the equipment to us that you wouldn't believe. They really worked, they really got with it. The women they worked in the shipyards, they made ships, they made ammunition, when the war was over and we came back down the roads in Germany, there was ammunition and stuff piled on both sides of the road, 10, 20 feet, as far as you could see, just on and on, miles after miles. The women really did go to work and put the material out, and that's what you had to have, because we outnumbered them in material and we outnumbered them in planes, but not in tanks and so on. I don't think the women got the praise that they should have had. When I came back out of the war, I had no job or anything. I stayed with my mother and daddy a while. My dad and mother were so happy to get me back that I was so welcome that they didn't want me to do anything much. And I had a lot of ambition. I wanted to get into something. And I had worked at a factory in Evansville before I went in the Army, about a year, and so I had called them. Then they offered to take me back. Was glad to have me back, and so I was on my way to Evansville, and I stopped at a little town, Smiths Grove, to the press shop to get my pants pressed. And that man had been in the war, and he had his arm broke, and he said he would like to have a partner to go in the dry cleaning business where they could expand some. So I got to thinking about it, and I went back to my home and spent the night, and they said, well, what are you doing back? And I said, well, I'm thinking about going to the dry cleaning business. Well, they never had done dry clean, and they kind of laughed about it. And so I went back the next day, and he just had a press shop, so I bought half of it. It wasn't maybe $700, $800, and so I was in the dry cleaning business. So he and I went to Nashville, and we bought a plant where we could do the cleaning and do it all there. Then we started a route or two in some little towns, and we'd run like every Tuesday we'd pick up clothes in those little towns, and we got up a good business. So he decided he wanted to sell out, and he was going somewhere else, and so I bought him out. So I run the dry cleaners 10 years, and it was a good business. I worked night and day there, and it was open 6 days a week and Saturday night till 9 o'clock. And then I got in the grocery business also at the same time. And so I run the dry cleaners 10 years, and I thought it was a good business. I worked one man, and but I always wanted something better. And I decided I kept thinking I wanted a real estate business and wanted to be an auctioneer. So while I was pressing clothes every day, I practiced auctioneering. And I run the town crazy. I had me a little speaker, and I auctioned all the time. And they'd pass the door, and they wouldn't know what was going on in there. And they said, well, that guy's practicing. Well, I practiced about 5 or 6 years, and then, so now I had to get a job auctioneering. So I carried a bunch of farmers with me. We went to this cattle market, and that man had been there for years, and talked to the man that owned the yard about hiring me to sell the cattle market. And the farmers promised him he'd take him to carry him some business if he'd hire me, and so he did. And I started the cattle market, and I stayed there 26 years. And but after I got started, then I'd been practicing along. I thought I was pretty good at what I was doing, so I began to get a job at the selling cars in Bowling Green. I got a job in Louisville and Nashville selling cars, same week. So I was selling somewhere about every day. And I thought it was working out good. And then I had a little throat trouble, and I had to cut off some of the car auctions. The peroxide and everything that you'd breathe around was hurting my throat, and I was smoking a lot, so I quit some of the car auction and I stayed on with so then I got more into the real estate, and that's what I wanted, and it worked out good, and I worked the real estate business hard. I've been in the real estate business 51 years, 52 years in fact. And I've got Tartar Realty Companies on the bypass in Bowling Green. I've been in the same location 52 years. And I got 2 sons that work with me, and that's about all they ever done. One son taught school the first year, and then he's been with me ever since. And so we got a lot of business. We do a lot of auction business for the banks and for other people and everything. Back from the war with problems, and nearly everybody that I was in the war with had problems, and a lot of them threw themselves away and did things that they shouldn't do, and drank, and I saw that it was so easy to do, and my daddy was a lot of help to me, and I was from a good Christian family, and my daddy kept telling me that if I'd work 12, 15 hours a day and be so tired I'd have to sleep. I was having nightmares at night, and it was running me crazy. And I took his advice. I started working 6 days a week, and I worked Saturday night till 9 o'clock, and I was so tired I had to sleep. And it worked out good. So now I'm 88 years old, and I've been working 65 years, and I've enjoyed it very much. And I work 6 days a week for 65 years, and on Sunday we take our families and go to church, so that makes a complete week, and it's wonderful. Today we're at the National Corvette Museum in Bowling Green on I-65. I drove my son's Corvette to the Corvette Museum, and I was really happy to do that, and he was happy for me to drive it, and I kind of showed off a little bit. Well, I had to show everybody we had a Corvette, because that's something in Warren County. If you got a Corvette, you're kind of up front. Wendell Strode is the manager here, and he's the same age of my oldest child. They went to school at the same time, and we've known Wendell for all of his life, and he's a family of 12, and they're good people. We didn't live close to the Strodes, but I knew Mr. Strode. He was a Baptist preacher, and he lived 15, 20 miles from where my parents did. But when my dad passed away, Mr. Strode came to the funeral for respect to me, and I always really appreciated that. And he was a good man, and he had a lot of good family. In fact, his son has been a jailer here for years, and before that he was state police, and he raised a good family, a good hard-working family. We had a meeting with the Army out of Indiana, and there was about 10 or 12 of the 157th Brigade was here, and we passed the 79th Infantry recon helmet from me to them. And I'm the only one left, and that was in the recon in my division, and I passed the helmet to them. And their commander was here, and it was really, really nice, and they were wonderful people. And then we had a meal together, and everybody seemed to be very happy. It was very emotional for me. I guess you noticed that. It was kind of the last of my old divisions. It was last of the recon. It was last of all the boys that died that thought a lot of the recon. And there's a lot of people that respected, and we was respected even in Germany. We would be leading the division, and we'd get to a town and there'd be a delegate of 4 or 5 women dressed up, and they'd meet us at the edge of town, and they'd say, the soldiers are here or gone, please don't bomb us. Don't come in and tear our towns up. You've killed our children, please don't bomb us anymore. And they'd always be telling the truth. I feel like that the 79th Recon is not dead. It will be living on, and that was nice. And I felt like I was a part of them, and it was a pleasure for me to be a part of them. It was a lot of nice boys, and a lot of nice boys sacrificed all they had. It really meant something to me. Those boys, there was about 10 or 12 of them, and they're from Atterbury, Indiana. And they were so polite and nice, and I noticed they had good manners at the table. None of them eat with their caps on. I noticed they was very, very mannerly. So that tells me that the Army is going on with some good causes. They're doing some good treatment to boys that had no treatment at home, and they're teaching them right. And that really did make an impression on me, the way those boys handle themselves. They've been through that rough training like we all had, and when they got a compliment, if they've been in a long time, well, then they've probably been in some kind of battles themselves, and it meant something to see them, and I was just really carried away with them. I just thought they were all really nice and polite and mannerly, and I was a little surprised that they would be that well mannered and respected in the way they was acting. I was kind of surprised. I didn't know the Army was doing that good a job today. Well, about the only advice that I could say is do the right thing, do your job well, because if you ever go to war, the better you do your job, the longer you'll live. Because you learn a lot of tricks about life when you're in your basic training, so you need to take that with you. I know we had boys to come with us that'd been there 3 or 4 days, got killed, they didn't know nothing. And after you're there a while, you learn a lot. If we was going through the woods, we'd smell their uniforms, or they'd been wet, and the lieutenant he'd motion us to get down, or he'd smell the uniform. Then just a lot of tricks they had to keep living, and you soon learn them. So to stay alive, you need to take your training very, very seriously, and if you're gonna stay alive when the time comes. Of course, we all think, oh, well, that time's not coming, but one day it could. And you better be prepared if you're gonna go through it.